Of course. Here's section 1 of the Infidelity Story script, with a minimum of 760 words, written in a direct, emotionally rich, and to-the-point narrative style, tailored for a faceless video format. I always thought silence was peaceful, until it became the loudest part of my life. The kind of silence that wraps around you, tight and unrelenting, and suddenly, even the sound of your own breath feels too loud. That was my house on most days now. Quiet. Still. Empty. Ryan left early that morning. No goodbye kiss, no soft smile, just the door closing behind him. He'd said he had meetings in Chicago. I didn't ask for details. I stopped asking about a lot of things lately. I spent the morning cleaning things that weren't dirty, cooking meals no one would eat, scrolling through photos I should have deleted by now. In one of them, Ryan and I were dancing in the kitchen. He had his arms around me, and I remember that moment clearly, not because it was perfect, but because it was rare. That version of us didn't last long. We used to talk about everything: books, politics, what we'd name our kids one day. Now, it's mostly about groceries and work schedules, if anything at all. He's always tired or in a rush. And I've learned to smile through the ache. Because what else is there to do? Melissa called around noon. She always does when she knows Ryan's away. She asked how I was, and I lied, like I always do. Said I was fine. Said I was reading a book. She told me to get out, go see people, maybe even flirt a little. I laughed, told her I wasn't that kind of woman. She said loneliness turns women into things they swore they'd never be. I told her she was dramatic. But her words stayed with me longer than I wanted them to. Later, I made tea. Sat on the couch. Watched the rain blur the windows. I didn't even turn the TV on. I just stared. I didn't cry. I wasn't angry. Just numb. It's a strange thing, not feeling anything when you know you should. I opened the old photo album Ryan's mom gave us last Christmas. I don't know why. Nostalgia feels like punishment when things fall apart. On one page, there he was, smiling in a faded college photo, his arms slung around a man I hadn't seen in years. Caleb. I remembered him instantly. Cocky smile, warm eyes, always too charming for his own good. He'd flirted with me once, years ago, when Ryan left the room to take a call. I laughed it off. It was harmless then. We never saw him again after Ryan got the job out of state. I closed the album. Got up to stretch. That's when the doorbell rang. A sharp, clear sound that didn't belong in the middle of all that stillness. For a second, I froze. I wasn't expecting anyone. I wasn't dressed for anyone. My hair was still damp. No makeup. Just old sweatpants and a hoodie. I opened the door slowly, and there he was, Caleb. Older, broader, but still with that same energy. His hair was wet from the rain, and he held a small black bag at his side. He looked surprised, too, like maybe he didn't expect me to answer. Hey, he said, shaking the rain from his jacket. Ryan didn't tell you? I blinked. Tell me what? He smiled, sheepish. He said I could crash here for a night or two. I'm in town for a few days. Figured it'd be easier than a hotel. I didn't know what to say. Ryan never mentioned anything. No message. No call. Not even a quick heads up. Typical. I stepped aside. Come in. You'll catch a cold. He smiled, said thanks, and stepped inside. As he walked past me, a faint whiff of his cologne followed. Something about it was warm and familiar, even though I couldn't name it. He looked around, taking in the house. Looks different than I remember. Cozier. I nodded. We've changed a few things. He dropped his bag near the door and ran a hand through his wet hair. Hope I'm not intruding. I shook my head automatically. Not at all. But part of me knew he already was. Not just in my home, but somewhere deeper I didn't want to admit. I offered him tea, and he said sure. I moved to the kitchen, hands trembling slightly. I told myself it was just the surprise. Just the rain. Just the fact that I was alone all day and now suddenly. I wasn't. I handed him the mug, and our fingers brushed. It was nothing. It meant nothing. At least that's what I told myself, but as I sat across from him, watching him talk about how fast time flies and how strange it felt to be back, I realized something. Ryan didn't forget to tell me Caleb was coming. He just didn't think it mattered, and for the first time in a long time, I wondered what else didn't matter to him anymore. Let me know when you're ready for section 2. Of course. Here's section 2 of the script with a minimum of 760 words, written in the same direct, emotionally driven, and high-quality narrative style, continuing exactly where section 1 left off. I wasn't supposed to enjoy the conversation, but I did. Caleb was easy to talk to. Effortless. He asked questions Ryan hadn't asked in years: what books I was reading, what I wanted to do with my time, whether I still painted. He remembered things I'd forgotten about myself. We had dinner at the table. I couldn't remember the last time I'd eaten with someone who looked me in the eye the whole time. He told me about his divorce like it was just another chapter, not a tragedy. Said it ended quietly, without screaming, just two people who stopped choosing each other. I listened closely because something about that felt uncomfortably familiar. He glanced at the framed picture of Ryan and me by the window. You two still solid? He asked, as if it were casual. I smiled without answering. I was tired of pretending things were perfect. He didn't press. Just nodded like he understood. Later, we sat in the living room. I poured him a second glass of wine without thinking, then poured one for myself. The space between us on the couch felt smaller than it should have. He leaned back, relaxed, like he belonged there. I stayed stiff, aware of every inch between our shoulders. You always seemed out of place with Ryan, he said suddenly. Not in a bad way. Just different energies. I looked at him. What does that mean? He shrugged. He's practical. You're emotional. He shuts down. You open up. You were always the one giving more. It wasn't bitterness in his voice. Just observation. The kind that stings because it's true. I asked him how long he'd known. He said he noticed it the first time we met. Back then, I thought he was just flirting. Maybe he was. The conversation shifted to old stories, college memories, places they used to go, girls they chased. I laughed at things I shouldn't have found funny. The wine was warm in my chest. Caleb looked at me with that same mischievous spark he always had, but now it felt different. More direct. Less innocent. He asked me what I wanted. Not in life. Right now. I didn't answer. I couldn't. I was too aware of the silence that followed. The kind of silence filled with unspoken things. He leaned in a little, not touching me, just close enough for it to matter. You know, he said, I used to wonder what it would have been like if it had been me instead of him. I didn't move. My heart was thudding so loudly it drowned out the rain. I felt my face flush, not with embarrassment, but something else. Something dangerous. Why are you saying that? I asked. He looked at me carefully. Because I see you. You think no one does, but I do. I looked away. That line, I see you, I hadn't heard it in so long. It hit harder than it should have. My chest felt tight, like I was holding something in that wanted to come out. Not tears. Not anger. Just everything I'd kept buried under silence. He touched my hand. Soft. Just his fingertips. I should have pulled away. Instead, I froze. You deserve to be seen, he said. I wanted to believe him. I hated how much I wanted to believe him. It's not that simple, I said, almost whispering. I know it's not, he replied. But sometimes you don't need it to be simple. You just need it to be real. His hand didn't move, and neither did mine. I thought about Ryan. About how he hadn't noticed I stopped saying goodnight. How he didn't realize I hadn't smiled in our pictures for months. About how, even when he was home, it felt like I was living with a shadow of the man I married. I pulled my hand back. Slowly. Gently. I'm not that woman, I said. He nodded. I didn't say you were. We sat in silence after that. But not the kind that suffocates. It was the kind that hums with the weight of everything unspoken. Eventually, I stood and said I was going to bed. He didn't stop me. Didn't follow. Just said goodnight in that soft, unreadable tone. Lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling, listening to the rain. I wasn't thinking about what almost happened. I was thinking about what didn't. About how close I came to crossing a line. And how easy it was to reach that edge. My phone buzzed. A message from Ryan. One sentence: won't be home for another week. Sorry. No, I miss you. No, how are you holding up? Just logistics. Cold and clear. I turned the screen face down on the nightstand, and in that moment, I felt something I wasn't proud of, relief, not guilt. Not shame. Just a strange, quiet relief that I wouldn't have to face him yet, because even though nothing happened, something had already changed, and I wasn't sure I could ever undo it. Let me know when you're ready for Section 3. Here is Section 3 of the script, written with the same sharp focus and emotional precision, continuing directly from Section 2. It maintains a minimum of 760 words, avoids repetition, and delivers a strong, to-the-point conclusion to the story. The next morning felt different. Brighter, somehow, even though the clouds were still there. I woke up to the smell of coffee. Caleb was in the kitchen, moving around like he belonged here. He greeted me with a calm smile. Nothing in his face showed any tension from the night before. He didn't bring it up, and I didn't either. But it hung between us, obvious in everything we didn't say. He said he'd head out by afternoon, didn't want to intrude. I nodded. It was polite, expected. I said he could stay longer if he needed. He looked at me for a second longer than necessary, then said he appreciated it. We sat again, side by side, eating quietly. He asked if I had any regrets about how life turned out. I told him I used to. Now I just accepted it. He didn't push. He never pushed. That was the difference. Ryan always needed answers. Caleb just listened. The power flickered once, then went out. Wind howled outside. I lit a few candles without thinking much of it. He helped me find matches, and we ended up laughing about how unprepared I was for something so basic. I don't know how we ended up standing that close. I just looked up and he was there, inches away, eyes locked on mine like he was reading every thought I'd been trying to suppress. He said, quietly, that I hadn't changed much. Still sharp, still soft in the right places, still so full of feeling it almost hurt to look at me. I didn't believe compliments anymore, not from men. But the way he said it made it feel less like flattery and more like fact. When he touched my cheek, I didn't flinch. I leaned into it. Just slightly. And that was enough. He kissed me. It wasn't rushed or desperate. It was slow, deliberate, like he was asking a question with his mouth, and I answered it without words. There wasn't a dramatic pull away. No guilt mid-moment. Just heat, closeness, something I hadn't felt in longer than I cared to admit. After, we didn't speak. He fell asleep beside me on the couch, fully dressed, hand loosely wrapped around mine. I stayed awake. Staring into the dark, heartbeat steady, not panicked. Just aware. By morning, he was gone. No goodbye. No note on the table, no text on my phone. Only silence. This time, a different kind. Not cold. Not empty. Just final. Later that day, I found a folded napkin on the armrest where he'd been sitting. It had one line scribbled across it: "Don't hate yourself. It wasn't just you." I read it twice. Then burned it in the sink. Ryan came back 2 days later. Walked in like nothing had happened. He asked if I'd been okay during the storm. I said yes. He didn't ask anything else. He didn't notice the subtle shift in me. Or maybe he did, and chose to ignore it. That's always been his way. He unpacked while I cooked. Told me about a client dinner that went long. I nodded, said that sounded nice. He didn't notice I'd rearranged the living room. Or maybe he noticed and didn't mention it. He didn't ask if I missed him. Didn't say he missed me. That night, he fell asleep early. I stayed awake. Same bed. Miles apart. I thought about Caleb. About how quickly it all happened. How natural it felt. And how, even though I should have been ashamed, I wasn't. Not exactly. What I felt was worse. Justified. People think cheating always starts with a kiss, or lust, or boredom. But that's not true. It starts when someone else makes you feel like you exist again. When someone notices the little cracks no one else sees. The kind of noticing that becomes a mirror. And then a question. And eventually, an answer. I deleted Caleb's contact that night. Blocked the number too, though I knew he wouldn't call. Ryan rolled over in his sleep. Mumbled my name. Not in affection. Just habit. I closed my eyes. It wasn't about leaving Ryan. It wasn't about starting something new. It was about remembering what it felt like to be touched without hesitation, spoken to without distraction, seen without judgment. And no, I don't plan to tell him. There's nothing to confess. Not in a house where absence has become the language we both speak fluently. What happened didn't break me. It reminded me I'm still here. Still capable of feeling. Of wanting. Of choosing, even if it was just once, and if that makes me a villain in someone else's story, then so be it, because in mine, it was the first honest moment I'd had in years. Let me know if you'd like the full story compiled, or need a YouTube voiceover script adaptation or visuals guide next. Here is section 4 of the story script, continuing the same emotionally direct, no-fluff style, maintaining a minimum of 760 words and seamlessly building on what has already been established. 2 weeks passed. Life went back to what it always was. Ryan woke up early, left without words, came home late with excuses. I played my part, warm meals, clean counters, nods in all the right places. On the outside, nothing looked different. That was the most dangerous part. Inside, everything had shifted. I stopped checking my phone for messages. I no longer waited for Ryan to look at me the way he used to. I didn't expect it anymore. And once you stop expecting, you stop hoping. Melissa came over one afternoon, noticed the new plant by the window. She said something felt different about me. I just smiled and changed the subject. She asked if everything was okay between me and Ryan. I told her the truth, in the safest way possible. We are fine. Same as always. She didn't believe me, but she didn't push. She never did. Ryan noticed I stopped asking where he was going or when he'd be back. One night, he asked if something was wrong. I said no. He stared at me for a moment, maybe trying to decide if it was worth digging. He chose not to. A few nights later, I watched him sitting on the edge of the bed, scrolling through emails. I asked him if he was happy. He looked at me like I'd asked him what day it was. Of course, he said. I didn't push. I just nodded. That word had lost meaning in this house. He reached for me later, like routine. No warmth behind it, no urgency. Just habit. I let him. It felt distant, mechanical. I thought of Caleb for a second, then forced the image out. I wasn't going back there. That moment came and went. It served its purpose. It woke me up, but being awake isn't the same as being alive. I was still here, still stuck in this space between pretending and enduring. One afternoon, I found a note in Ryan's coat pocket. It was short. A scribbled address and a time. It wasn't written by him. The handwriting was too neat. At first, I didn't react. I just stared at it. Then I put it back exactly where I found it. That night, he said he had a client dinner again. I nodded. No hesitation in his lie. No guilt. Just easy detachment. He left wearing that same coat. I didn't follow him. I didn't need to. I already knew. Funny how betrayal looks different depending on who commits it. Mine was a response. His was a pattern. Ongoing. Calculated. I wasn't even angry. Just exhausted. Watching a person erase you slowly over years takes more energy than people realize. I sat at the table with a glass of water and nothing else. No tears. No plans. Just stillness. A kind of clarity that didn't ask for revenge or confrontation. Just truth. When he got home past midnight, he smelled like expensive perfume. Not mine. He didn't even try to hide it. He walked past me like I wasn't there. Like I was a wall. I waited until morning. Then I asked him, plainly, "Do you love me?" He paused. That pause was my answer. Still, I waited. "I care about you," he said. I nodded. That's not the same thing. He didn't argue. Didn't apologize. He just looked down like he wanted this conversation over. "I know," I said. "I've known for a while." That made him look up. "What do you want?" he asked. "Not this," I replied. For the first time in years, I saw something flicker in his eyes. Not regret. Not anger. Just fear. Fear of the thing he always took for granted slipping away. "I thought we were fine," he said quietly. "I know you did," I answered. He sat down like he suddenly realized how empty the room had become. But it was too late for realizations. Too late for salvaging something that had rotted quietly in the corners. "I didn't cheat on you," he added. "You didn't have to," I said. You just stopped choosing me. The silence that followed was heavier than anything Caleb or I had shared. Because this wasn't about passion or mistakes. This was about neglect. Slow, consistent, deliberate neglect. I told him I'd be gone by the weekend. He didn't stop me. He just nodded. I don't think he knew what else to do. By Friday, I packed 2 bags and left. No drama. No scene. Just a quiet exit, the kind of departure that comes from years of preparing internally before taking a single step. As I locked the door behind me, I didn't look back, not out of pride, out of peace, because the truth is, infidelity doesn't always start with a stranger. Sometimes, the first betrayal is silence. The rest just follows, and I was done living in a house full of ghosts. Let me know if you'd like this broken down for voiceover, turned into a video storyboard, or compiled into a complete final version.